Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, big congratulations to all the Bitcoin holders as we celebrate this historic milestone, Bitcoin smashing the 100K. Please drop a yes or no in the chat if you are celebrating today with us. Welcome to today's webinar. Now, where is it safe to hold and trade your crypto? We'll be looking at trends and options to hodl and grow in 2025. My name is Maria Lopez Diaz, and I'm delighted to be your moderator for what promises to be an insightful and thought-provoking session. The crypto landscape definitely has reached a pivotal moment this year. I mean, first we had the approval of Bitcoin ETFs, and the momentum sparked obviously a new pro-crypto administration in the US. We have Bitcoin now surging past 100K, as I mentioned before, and solidifying its status as a key store of value. So these developments with the digital asset market surpassing an unprecedented 3.4 trillion in market cap have now definitely transformed the ecosystem. So bringing in more players, more institutional players for sure as well, and reshaping all the strategies for traders and holders worldwide. So with this rapid growth, it is also critical for us individuals and for institutions alike to focus on now answering two essential questions. So we'll be focusing today about where is it truly safe to hold and trade digital assets, and how can you operational manage your complexities to achieve sustainable growth. So today, to tackle these questions, I have with me Lars Holst and Ian Rogers. Lars Holst, who founded GCX in 2018 on the back of a successful sale of his former company, Prime of Prime Brokerage, CFH, now known as Finalto, is now spearheading GCX's growth to enable brokers, fund managers, and professional traders to access liquidity in digital assets, and FX and CFDs. Now, Ian Rogers, truly honored to have him here today. He's Chief Experience Officer and board member at Ledger, a global leader in digital asset security. And Ian has played a pivotal role in shaping an ecosystem for how individuals approach what he calls security maximus. But there are other impressive names behind him, including LVMH, Apple Music, Beats, fashion search engine list, and also he has been working with the Beastie Boys, I know. So he comes from the music business and now moved to the technology business. So it is great to have you both here. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to be moving on to the discussion because we don't have a lot of time. So we'll try to address as many questions as we can. So please make sure you drop your questions in the chat. And without further ado, let's get started, shall we? First question, Lars, for you. So GC Exchange, also known as GCX, is not an exchange. So that's, I guess, something that you will want to clarify. But you enable trading of FX, indices, commodities, and obviously crypto. So from your perspective, why it is important to understand the difference between an exchange and a broker like GCX, and what trends are you seeing in institutional adoption of crypto assets?
Well, thank you, Maria. Actually, I wasn't sure whether I want to join today because I had a retirement plan at 100K, but I guess now that I know Ian has been involved with the Beastie Boys, I'm even more honored actually. So we need to catch up on that. No, and I guess given the smile on my face, I'm also a long-term hodler, not because I was visionary or I believed in Bitcoin as many other folks they'll probably claim. I was just lucky, like other things, and it was part of a portfolio built many moons ago. But of course, amazing to see the market where we are today and what has happened over the past months and years. And again, whether we like Trump or not, he's certainly been good for business. So yeah, we are indeed not a crypto exchange. So we are regulated as a broker dealer is kind of the regulatory term. We are regulated as an investment firm in the UK, as VASP, an investment firm in Europe, and VASP in UAE with VARA, the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority. So, and Europe, I guess we'll come back to that. We're preparing for MiCA. I guess that's probably also a big thing for Ledger, being also domiciled in the EU. The institutional adoption, I think, is all over the news. All appointments, well, Trump, Musk, and everyone around them are, of course, very pro crypto, and has been, I guess, the main catalyst for the recent move. But fundamentally, I guess we are in the business because we believe in the long-term future of digital assets, and we believe that we need to change from TradFi. And even though we also rooted in TradFi, my background is not at all as exciting as Ian, but more been on the banking side and foreign exchange side, and for the past 25 years, and we can see the friction and the issues that we have increasingly in TradFi. And the reason I entered digital assets, read a book about the non-bankable, and one number I do seem to remember is 85% of the population in Africa are not banked, so meaning they're not in the financial services ecosystem. So we need another way to bank them. So I come from this from a different angle probably than Ledger and that are native, but if we get more people on board, we get more people involved. I think today, how many people realistically are active in crypto? 100 million people. I think Ian mentioned yesterday at most. It's still very complex to access. What is a wallet? Ian will get back to that. How do you find a counterpart that you can then work with? And that's at least where at GCX we come in as the trading part of today. We are to regulate a counterpart where you can access the market, and then hopefully Ian will come back to where you store it later. But GCX, not an exchange, but for all intents and purposes, broker dealer, where you can get best execution, get the best available prices from all liquidity sources globally, and you can do that via a regulated counterparty like GCX across multiple jurisdictions.
Thank you. Okay, and to you, Ian, Ledger obviously plays a critical role in helping individuals secure their crypto. So in your experience, what is driving them to enter crypto as a space, and how does security play a role into that decision?
I think there are many reasons that people enter crypto. And, I think we're really talking about a revolution that's as big as the internet. And I say that not because I want to, hand wave and make platitudes, but it's just we have a new invention, and that new invention is getting adopted. I started working on the internet in 1990. I studied computer science in the early 90s, and I did drop out of grad school for computer science in 1995 to go on tour with the Beastie Boys, which is what brought me to LA, and then did digital music for 20 years after that, from Winamp and Yahoo Music to Beats Music and Apple Music. And over that time, I saw this thing that, very few of us cared about in 1990 and 91 become something that, was maybe a bit more a part of the zeitgeist in 95, which caused a run up of interest and, in fact, overinvestment into the late 90s. And then, and we had a lot of great ideas in, let's say, 1998 and 99 that we all thought were going to come true tomorrow. And they did. And in that bubble, burst in 2000. And we had this trough of disillusionment. And it really took until 2012 before you started to see the internet really take over in people's lives. I mean, what I mean by that is you really started to see it in the numbers, the way that we, in mobility, in food delivery, in, even in mental health of young people. You started to see that in kind of the early 2010s. because there was a new invention. The movement of information from one computer to another. That's all the internet is. Two computers can talk to each other. But when you start building layers on top of that new invention, at the end of the day, you end up with the iPhone and Uber. I mean, there are these very unexpected paths. I mean, we should all remember that when Uber was announced, I don't know when it was, late 2000s, 2010, kind of in that time frame. Nobody said, "Oh my God, that's going to change the world." Maybe five people did. Let's be honest, but most people said, "Wow, that's a nice way for rich people to get black cars." It's amazing how sort of little forethought we have, and this is a separate revolution. It's the internet of value that we're experiencing right now, and that's started 15 years ago with the Bitcoin white paper, and it's gone in many cycles, but it continues to build, just like the internet did. And just like with the internet, you get overexcitement, and then those bubbles burst, and you get a bit of trough of disillusionment, and then you get growth again. But it's for those of us who have been believers in crypto for many years and who've been working in crypto for many years. 100K Bitcoin is, we knew this was coming this year. To be honest with you, we've been saying it all year. 100K Bitcoin will become before the end of the year. We couldn't have predicted the outcome of the election necessarily, but there's an invention here and people are using it. And to answer your question about why are they coming in, there are all kinds of reasons, but I think a lot of it, of course, is speculation on an asset that is likely to grow. But the question is then why do we believe it will grow? And it is, I mean, there's sort of the unbanking or banking the unbanked, as Lars said, but also I think there's unbanking the banked. The reality is that it's the services that were offered in the financial services industry, are oftentimes lacking. I mean, I'm very much looking forward to the day when I can do everything I need to do, from receiving my paycheck to paying my bills, with my ledger. My personal bank does fairly little for me as a consumer these days. Ledger is a company that's been around for 10 years in this space, always focused on the same thing: security and self-custody for individuals. And for the last 5+ years, we've been focused on enterprise security that comes with governance for institutions. So the product you might be familiar with is the Ledger Nano. This product has been around in this kind of a form factor since 2016. I've got the Nano S, the Nano X, which is this one, and also the S Plus. A couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago now, we announced a product designed by Tony Fadell that's called Ledger Stacks. I could talk more about it, but I can do it later. This has this innovative curved e-ink display. It's the world's first organic TFT that features this curved e-ink display, designed by Tony Fadell, who invented the iPod and co-invented the iPhone. And then this summer at Bitcoin Nashville, we announced a product called Ledger Flex, which is a less expensive e-ink touchscreen version of our product. What these products do is they protect your private key. Very quickly, your value is safe on the blockchain. And what you have is a private key that says you are the owner of that value that's out there on the blockchain. And you need that private key to do anything with that value, whether if you want to sign it and spend it, or sign a more complex transaction. You always need your private key to do that. And fundamentally, what Ledger does, your Bitcoin is not in this device. What's in this device is your private key. And it's very important that your private key stays secure. And we can talk more about that if people are interested. And what this device fundamentally does is protect your private key and allows you to securely sign a transaction at the time when you need to do something with your value. And that's what we're in the business of. The very, very, like, largely, I would say that these mobile phones, smartphones, are incredible products for an internet of information, but they are very poor at security, which is why they're not the right tool for an internet of value. And these are incredible devices for an internet of value. And in every industrial transformation, you have an unbundling, and ultimately there's a rebundling. But we are at that unbundled phase, and Ledger has the number one product in that world. So that's us and what we do. And I think we're this quite horizontal thing under whatever the reason that people want to come in, to crypto, whether they're speculating on Bitcoin, whether they're developers and they're working on Ethereum or Sui, et cetera, or Solana. Maybe they are digital art collectors. Maybe they are doing digital ticketing. Like anything that you do which involves digital ownership, we are the self custody and security tool for that job.
And how do you see these tools just facing some of the operational challenges that we have in order to be able to really use them for crypto activities?
I mean, this is what we do every day at Ledger, and I'll tell you, it's not an easy or necessarily obvious job. I came into this call straight out of a meeting with our head of product, where we're looking at a lot of the things that we're planning for next year, both in hardware and software, and it's incredibly exciting. And it's one of those things where you can also see that you're always building on the shoulders of giants. The context I give, and I really encourage everyone to think this way. Again, for me, I started working on the internet in 1990. There was no World Wide Web. And when I started working on the World Wide Web, there was no CSS, there was no layout, there were no background colors, right? And I'll tell you that it was when the iPhone was released in 2008, and it was actually probably a year after the iPhone was released, that it really dawned on us, oh, wow, this is why we've been doing this all along. Wow, look, there's a device here that people might actually be able to use, and not just geeks like us. And that wasn't built from nothing. In fact, if you didn't have, the Apple personal computers, you never would have had the iPod. If you didn't have the iPod, you would have never had the iPhone. If you didn't have Next computer that Steve Jobs started when he was fired from Apple, you never would have had OS X. If you didn't have BSD Unix, you never would have had Next. Like, this is the way it works. You're always building on the shoulders of giants, and it's no different in this industry. So Ledger's been around for 10 years, and our mission has always been trying to allow people to do whatever it is they would like to do without compromising on security and self-custody. Because that's the other thing. Every one of these crypto cycles, you have people that try to give you very rational reasons that you need to compromise on security, self-custody, or usually both. And they usually include the phrase like onboarding the masses, and then it ends in disaster. But the reality is that the trick is, how can we get people to have and utilize digital value, but also be safe and secure and in control and not subject to counterparty risk, whether that is Celsius or FTX or SVB. Like, that is the goal, and we're constantly building that. So this year we've been working on things which they're quite difficult to do. Clear signing is one of them. It sounds technical. It's not. It just means that when you sign a transaction, you're not signing a blank check. You can see exactly what it is you're signing, but it's a very heavy lift, because that means every application in the space needs to adopt that standard. Every wallet in the space needs to adopt that standard, and all of that to kind of create a flow that keeps the user safe. But it's not so different from what we've been through with web browsers, and web browsers adopting standards that allow us to do what we're doing right now. I had an AT&T executive in 2002 tell me we would never be able to do video on the internet. And look at us. I'm looking at a web browser right now, an open source web browser. I'm talking to people around the world. I'm sitting here with my laptop, which is not plugged into anything at all. Not a network cable, not a power cable. I mean, this was unimaginable in 1998, right? But this is what we do. The standards do get built, they do get implemented, they do get adopted, and this is just what we do every day. It's like, okay, what's the next plateau that you find, and then you get back on the ladder, and you keep going. So for us, a big step was going from these little devices to having the device with a companion app that can also do the things you want to do in crypto, like buy, swap, stake. We have a credit card so you can spend or offboard, and then going, well, wow, this little screen on this device is maybe not for the mainstream customer. What if we can get to a real touch screen that feels more like a Kindle screen that an average consumer is familiar with, and then you just keep going from there. What's the next problem? What's the next solution?
Okay, thank you so much. And that's obviously for individuals mainly, but in your case, Lars, obviously you deal with large scale crypto portfolios that have different complexities like regulatory compliance or liquidity. So how do institutions overcome these hurdles effectively, and how it is different in our case as GCX?
I guess some of the hurdles that we also try to solve are similar to Ledger, about security, reliability, and accessibility, because for even institutional clients, they struggle to get exposure. How do they want exposure? Do they want derivatives? Do they want futures? Do they want to hold something on Ledger or something similar as Ledger? So they have investment committees. They have things they need to go through, and if is the regulator in the home jurisdiction, are they pro or against crypto this month or not? Of course, so coming back to the election in the US, the whole US is probably changing. We don't know yet where it ends, because Trump is just one guarantee for one thing, that's volatility. So long may it continue. But in the UK, to the last few years, we've had so many changes in government, for the people that know about the UK, and the whole reason for Brexit was to set Britain free, and London should be the crypto capital of the world, if we remember back. The problem was that Boris Johnson and his companions, they forgot to tell the FCA. So the FCA, they will send out one warning after the other, and they certainly also forgot to tell the banks, coming back to the non-bankable. So talking about 85% of people in Africa not being able to open a bank account. That's probably 100% of people involved in crypto in the UK that cannot get a bank account. So, and back to, so there are many issues also for the crypto adoption. Um, when we do transfers, we often get the question, okay, when you send the funds back and forth to us, can our bank see that it's from crypto activities? Because then they're afraid of their bank account being frozen. How absurd is that? They're dealing with a UK or an EU regulated counterpart. I don't want to mention the names here, but we're dealing with a EU regulated, MiCA regulated counterpart like GCX, and the clients are still asking, will they be able to see on the other side that you're involved in crypto? That's of course absurd. So not only we have bankable problems in Africa, we have bankable problems around the globe, because a lot of clients, no, banks will essentially freeze your account or kick you out. I've experienced that myself. Again, I don't want to name and shame them here in public, but that's back to the institutional adoption. They still holding back, because they're afraid of what will that impact my normal business. In the UAE, as an example, where we operate, there's actually only one bank that's really super crypto friendly, even though from the top they're very crypto friendly all the way down, but until they actually open up on the banking level, then it's very difficult to kind of scale. And again, back to the crypto adoption, if you have a big business over here, you're making millions or if not billions of dollars, then it's probably a big ask for the chief investment officer and the board to say, okay, now we also want to get exposure to crypto, because we actually truly believe in it, if they risk part of their day-to-day business. But we're trying to solve the accessibility, promoting the fact, hey, you're dealing with someone regulated. We have the stamp from the, I would say, the best regulators around the world, from UK, EU, and UAE. So a starting point would be to trade with us. Of course, we have colleagues just like Ledger, they do, but then they the account opening process and accessing the assets and the trading is kind of have the same more or less look and feel as they used to. And I think that's also what Ledger are trying to address. They want to make it so they don't they have the same user experience. I guess that's what Ledger is trying to do. That it's kind of familiar for clients to deal with the devices from Ledger, like they used to, because that's what it requires. Remember the first time I had to go and open my own wallet. It's kind of difficult to make an on-chain transfer on your own without the likes of Ledger. It's not easy, and that's what we're trying to solve. And being deregulated, we have standardized ways to help clients both get exposure, on ramp, off ramp, and trade. And it has the same smell, has the same look and feel to what they used to from their TradFi business.
And
Yeah.
do you think that regulatory clarity will be a catalyst of growth, or do you think it could bring some limitations on how institutions operate in this space?
I can go first. I guess that's a two-edged sword, because the regulators, by definition, they live in the past. I don't want to be rude to anyone, but of course, for them to also make changes and kind of promote regulatory changes, they're also taking a risk. So on one hand, it's good for consumer protection. It's good for kind of that for clarity, and we all know how to act, so we don't kind of lose the business to unregulated offshore counterparties that maybe don't use people like Ledger to safeguard their assets. So on that side, it's of course good that we have regulators coming in, but the risk is also that they will maybe not really kind of, they will counter what really was the ethos of virtual assets and the Bitcoin, of course. So I think that there's a conflict there, but being regulator, of course, I have to tell you, we support and we embrace regulation, but can also be a risk for the future of our business.
Okay, thank you. For the audience, please include in the chat your comments about, do you have any security concerns that are holding you back about adopting more widely your crypto, or just feel free to share any thoughts. We are running out of time, amazingly. We're going really quickly, but I do want to ask Ian, what do you think are the key trends, or what are the innovations that are you most excited about for 2025 and beyond, in particular, obviously in relation to the crypto space?
Sure. And maybe, but if you don't mind, just quickly, I had to follow on to what Lars just said, because I think he made a really important point about, I agree that, regulation, well, what we're experiencing now will undoubtedly be a catalyst for the space. I mean, it was certainly the pick of the new SEC chair, who was the absolute complete opposite of the previous SEC chair that pushed Bitcoin over 100K. So, certainly having and if I'm not mistaken, in the past he's been outspoken that the industry should be open to sane regulation, right? And so, the notion that we might get some clarity around the rules in the U.S. as opposed to regulation by enforcement is certainly what's driving is what's driving the growth. And I think that a lot of what Lars was referring to in terms of people having this fear around being in this business will dissipate over this cycle, and that will be a major catalyst, because you're going from the point where it was maybe a liability to be in this business to maybe to being a liability to have a 0% exposure to this business. I think you can see that in we've been saying all year long that the catalyst for this is not necessarily politics, it's BlackRock. Right, politics follows BlackRock on this, not the other way around. If you look at the Larry Finkelmeter, he went from Bitcoin and crypto is for for criminals and drug dealers 10 years ago, to I'm interested in blockchain but not Bitcoin, to I think Bitcoin is a hedge against monetary debasement. Like that he's made that journey over the past 10 years, and I think that what you're seeing is that becoming widespread, and there is in fact game theory in that. And really, if I could do anything with the audience, if you've not read Broken Money by Lynn Alden, I highly recommend it. Also, there's a great book just about security. It has nothing to do at all to do with cryptocurrency, but the impact that technology and the security of that technology has on our lives, written by Nicole Perlroth, who's the cybercrime reporter of the New York Times, called "This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends." It's a fantastic book from 5 or 6 years ago. And I think if you read those two, then you'll kind of have you'll share some perspective with me, at that point. In terms of trends, it's related. I think when we look at what do we have now in this cycle that we didn't have last cycle. I mean, I started investing in crypto in 2015. I kind of went all in 2020, and the reason that I did was that the technology was really here. It was here. We started to have Ethereum and smart contracts, and you could see that we were moving only from a speculative store of value to actually kind of a world computer in 2020. But now that's really here. When you see like we have ample block space, whether it's L2s around Bitcoin, Solana, Sui, many other technologies that are providing kind of the everything that you need to really bring a lot of applications on chain. That's anything where you're going to need proof. And by the way, in a world of artificial intelligence, you need proof and user ownership of preferences more than in the previous world. And again, I apologize if it's a little too technical, but we know we're accustomed today to a world full of bots, right? We know we're living in a world today where a CFO in Hong Kong was conned out of $25 million on a Zoom call where he thought he was talking to people who weren't really human. Like, that's not science fiction, that's today, right? So a world where you can be sure that this is me talking, right? When you can be sure that I'm a human, when you can be sure that I'm a unique human and not a bot, that's a world we need to live in. This is not optional. We talk a lot about artificial intelligence and agentic artificial intelligence, meaning I'm going to say, hey, bot, book me a ticket to Miami. Tell me how that's going to happen. I'm going to give that bot my credit card information. I'm going to give that bot my Delta login. How does that actually happen? Only if I own my preferences as the user and I can federate those preferences to the bot does that even make sense. And we've seen these products already. We had Humane at the beginning of the year by ex-people from Apple. You had the Rabbit R1, which was the darling of CES back in January. These have been huge flops as products, but you always have to ask yourself, were those stupid or were they just early? Well, they were just early. And a lot of that crypto infrastructure, the digital ownership infrastructure, the proof infrastructure that we need is what is still yet to be built to bring that. So I think this cycle you'll see a lot of intersection of artificial intelligence and crypto, and nobody knows that as well as Sam Altman. There's a reason that the creator of ChatGPT also created WorldCoin, right, to help unique humans identify themselves, because you can look at a tweet from 2021 where he says that basically crypto and AI are two sides of the same coin. AI brings abundance of data, digital abundance, and crypto delivers digital scarcity, and you need both of those things to go forward. So I think in this cycle we'll see just sort of the I think we will see crypto go from bad to good, in terms of all of the things that Lars was talking about earlier. Do you get debanked for being a startup which is dealing in crypto? That's over. That's over, and there will be a reaction to that. You saw it yesterday when Brian Armstrong was stating publicly that the lawyers from the SEC in the U.S. who let this happen, if they are hired by firms, his company will not be employing those firms. Like, what's going on is so egregious that it will not be taken sitting down. It will not be like, oh, thank you, let's move on. It will be, look, you came for my water, and that's not okay. Right. That'll be one thing that we see over the next year. The other will be the proliferation of these a lot of these applications will be able to flourish now, and we'll have innovators who want to innovate in this space again, and that will bring us a lot of applications. I remember in 2002, I mentioned earlier the video one, but I remember people saying to me, "I'll never have an email address. I don't need one of those." And now I hear people, I'll never own crypto. I'll never own digital assets. Okay, I don't even want to have that conversation with anyone. What I say if someone says that is like, call me in 10 years when your driver's license is a digital asset and it's in a digital wallet. Will it look like today's ledger? Of course not. Will your cell phone look like today's cell phone? Of course not. That's not how technology works. So I think that what we'll do this cycle, we're going to take another 2 steps forward. Probably at the end, we take one more step back. Guess what? That's still 1 step forward. That's what's going to happen.
Amazing. Thank you. What about you, Lars? Any trends, innovations, or predictions that you have for next year?
I agree with this. Everything will be digital, and again, not to promote UAE. I'm clearly not from the UAE myself, but all deeds in the UAE are now on the blockchain. So some of these, the I would say more cutting edge countries are overtaking us in France and Denmark and the UK. Because they don't have legacy systems. It's all these companies, countries where they probably need to protect legacy systems. They have most to lose, whereas countries that have less to lose, they will embrace the whole digital transformation better and faster, I think. One example, when I started in, you say 18, but really it was in 1920. Read also some books, and I actually, quite funny, I just looked over my shoulder. I just brought this book. So you recommended it. So someone is asking in the chat. So it is Broken Money. I still have it old paper format. But Identity is the New Money is another good book that kind of set me on my path with digital and crypto. And it was all about also security token and real world assets. Probably a lot of people on this call think, no, that's not going to happen. But I still fundamentally believe that this is also making it accessible for the wider masses. And a trivial thing, exposure to Apple shares. The guy in Pakistan or elsewhere in the world, Africa again, they cannot get exposure to Apple shares, but on a smart contract they could do so. Or if you want to have a portfolio of real world assets, some exposure to New York real estate or Dubai real estate, doing that on a smart contract is also fairly, I wouldn't say trivial, but it's easy. So I said it unfortunately also last year. I think we will see more real world asset projects and focus around security tokens. There's still a line between what's the real world asset, what is security token, but I guess you know what I mean. So that's where I see some the wider trend, but more adoption. Both me and Ledger, we live of volume and users, and we can see, hey, the volume has of course spiked, and more people will get on board. The fear of missing out will also start to play in, and making it easier for more people to get involved with the SEC approval and again, kind of top down, will be great for all of us. So I think more people getting involved, more institutions getting involved, and hopefully they will continue to rely on regulated and trusted counterparties like TCX and Ledger.
Great, thank you. We're almost running out of time. So before we go, Ian, Lars, I want to ask you, so any key recommendations, top priorities that our audience should follow as they want to keep adopting crypto?
I just wanted to cover the basics for folks. Like I said earlier, your value is not in your wallet. Your value is on the blockchain. What you have in your wallet is your private key. Your private key is the key to everything. If someone else has your private key, they have your value, right? So protecting your private key is the key. So when you look at your options for how to store your digital value, which will ultimately be a challenge in your life, whether it is today or whether it's 10 years from now, you will have in your life the challenge of protecting digital value. We lead digital lives. We'll have more and more digital value in our digital lives. That's a given. You really only have 2 choices: a trusted custodian or secure self-custody. I think there are trusted custodians, but there are very few. And oftentimes the people that you trust, it turns out you can't trust them. And we saw that in the last cycle, again, whether it was Celsius or FTX or SVB. We've lived that, and we lived that in a very big and painful way. At the same time, we trust custodians for many things in our lives. I trust Google for my corporate email. That's pretty big. And there are lots of places that we do that, whether it's a bank or otherwise. So I just think we have to make those choices thoughtfully. And what we should never do is do anything in the middle, right? What I mean is an untrusted custodian is a no-go, right? We can agree on that. Okay, we know that people will still get wrecked by untrusted custodians in this cycle, but really we all know the untrusted custodians would be a bad idea. The other would be insecure self-custody. And yet there are real companies, big ones, that are selling you things like software wallets. Hello? Like, even when it comes to your password security, right? We're doing things that are completely foolish, whether that's just having kind of poor hygiene or or using things to protect our vital information, our photos, things that are sentimental with really poor security. So I think it's something that we need to think about more than we do today, and we need to acknowledge the fact that whether it's losing your iCloud account or your Bitcoin, these have serious consequences in the lives of humans today. We wish they didn't. In a way, we wish technology was just this tool and that we were the master of, but it's not. That's not the life. That's not human life today. And so really like thinking hard about these things and making sure that you fit into you're doing things that are actually smart with your assets and your identity and your digital life. I think is something that we need to put a lot more emphasis on. I'll say one final thing before I shut up and turn it over to Lars. I mentioned earlier that we have an enterprise product at Ledger, and many of the trusted custodians that Lars works with use Ledger Enterprise on the back end, because if you're an individual, a Ledger product is an incredible security device that protects your private key and secures your digital life. If you are an organization, that can't live with one person, right? That's too much risk. What are you going to do? You're going to give the keys to your most trusted IT person? I've taken that phone call, by the way. Like 5 million just disappeared from our corporate treasury. Okay, who had the keys? Our IT guy. Where's your IT guy? We don't know. Okay. I believe me, that's not a fake story. And I've got 50 stories that would blow your mind. We're the lightning rod for those stories. So you need governance. And that's what Ledger Enterprise adds. It takes the Ledger grade security and it adds governance so that you can do what you need to do as an organization with your assets, trading, whatever you need to do without having risk, counterparty risk or internal risk. So I think making sure that you're really thinking about what is the security and whether that's the security of your custodian or your personal security needs to be front and center.
Lars, one last thought.
Oh, actually, of course, just to finish off with Ian said again, compliance and governance, I guess is also paramount for what we do. So, yes, try to get involved. I think that's the best way, best advice. So I always say we don't have a permission or a license actually to give any advice, or so all these big fat disclaimers that we have to make all the time. So keeping it generic. If you want to get involved in the digital asset space, of course, it involves huge risk, but I think so far so good. And if you really do want to get involved, hey, make sure that you choose, as Ian said, wisely who you get involved with, and also how they store on the back end, so they don't store it on software wallet or is controlled by IT security. But overall, it's extremely exciting. I think we're not at the beginning of the beginning, because that was of course 15 years ago, but we are probably at the beginning of phase two, and with the internet, if for the old folks on this call, this is the beginning of when it starts to get really interesting. I was started in financial service sector in the late 90s. So I had the dot-com bubble, where we remember Apple was about to get bankrupt, just go bankrupt around the time, and look where we are today. Look, back in the day, we were trading stocks. I actually have to tell that story. Nokia, for the old folks on this call, Nokia, they were sitting on 70% of the handset market in the world. 70%. So they went bankrupt. Let's remind ourselves how quickly things they go. So either you get involved or you go bust. And that's really how you can simplify this message. This is happening. We still have the skeptics, and we will always have the skeptics in the world. Is the glass half full or half empty? I guess we do startups, and we are in this business, both me and Ian, because fundamentally I'm an optimist. I believe in the future, and if we do the same thing tomorrow as we did yesterday and we expect change, then we have to be fucking stupid. So of course we have to do things differently, and we don't know what is coming. But have an open mind and make sure that you deal with the right people, and then I'm sure the future is bright.
Brilliant. Thank you. So before we wrap up, I'd like to thank Lars and Ian for their time and valuable insights. It's clear that securing and scaling crypto adoption and operations is definitely not a small task, but hopefully with the right tools and strategies, we can all navigate this evolving landscape with more confidence. So to the audience, thank you for today's participation. If you'd like to learn more about GCX or Ledger, please visit their websites or reach out directly. And please, a reminder that this recording will be sent out to you very shortly. And let's continue the conversation on LinkedIn or X. Use the hashtag CryptoSecurity2025 and share your thoughts or connect with us. Thank you and have a great day. Stay informed, stay ahead.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Susan, for connecting.
Yeah, thank you.